Fellow Sagittarius, there are moments in the life of a nation when politics stops being politics and becomes a question of destiny. There are moments when a country is not just debating a bill, but quietly deciding what kind of country it wants to become. Zimbabwe is now standing at one of those moments. You see, in a matter of weeks, perhaps even days, a bill that seeks to fundamentally change the way Zimbabwe is governed will be sent to the president of Zimbabwe so he can sign it into law. That bill is commonly known as CAB 3, short for Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. The bill has received overwhelming backing from the ZANU-PF-dominated parliament, where only 42 opposition MPs were brave enough to vote no. In the Senate, only 4 opposition senators were brave enough to vote no. The rest voted with ZANU-PF. So once this bill is formally passed by Parliament, with all the proposed amendments by Senate dealt with, the next stage is where things become very interesting. Because, as we all know, ultimately, it is the president who signs it into law. Just because both houses of Parliament have passed a bill does not automatically make it a law. It only becomes law after presidential assent and gazetting. But what if the president refuses to sign it? What if ED shocks the entire nation and indeed the whole world and lives up to his claim that he is a constitutionalist and decides that CAB 3 is unconstitutional and must not become law? Would that be the end of CAB 3? Can he simply throw it away? And also, is it even possible that a potential refusal to sign by ED could in itself be part of a bigger political script that none of us are thinking of right now? Could there be a potential shocker by ED? Well, fellow Sagittarius, slay queens and bingers, socialites, papalites, vasinamalites, varikudgarais, nevasinamarites, I welcome you to the special report. To understand this issue properly, we must separate 2 things: the law and the politics. On paper, Zimbabwe is governed by the constitution, but in reality, politics often sits above the law. The law is supposed to control power, but in Zimbabwe, power often controls the law. That is why many things that look legal on the surface are in truth political projects wearing legal clothes. Constitutional Bill number 3 is one such project. It is not just an ordinary constitutional amendment. It is a political agenda dressed up as a progressive reform. It is being presented as law, but its real meaning is found in politics. That is why they don't want a referendum. It's also the reason why the 90-day consultation phase was so tightly controlled and not inclusive. A referendum to them is very risky because it won't guarantee their outcome. Even worse, they would face not just the opposition, but also divisions within their own party. The entire nation isn't aligned on this thing. In short, they resist a referendum because they've carefully staged everything, from weakening the opposition with recalls, buying loyalty, yet still they don't trust the people's verdict. So that is why this is not just about the law. This is about politics. But I asked the question, what happens if President Mnangagwa refuses to sign CAB 3 into law? What would happen? Well, Section 131 of the Zimbabwean Constitution is very clear. The Constitution does not allow the president to simply ignore a bill forever. Once a bill is sent to him, he must act within 21 days. He can either sign it into law or he can send it back to Parliament with written reasons explaining his concerns. So the president cannot just say no and throw it away. He must send it back to Parliament and explain why he has refused to sign it. So once the president sends the bill back to Parliament, if Parliament still wants the bill to pass, it can vote again with a 2/3 majority and send it back to the president. By doing this, Parliament forces the president to sign the bill, whether he likes it or not. However, at that point, if the president still doesn't like the bill, if he still believes there's a problem, if he still thinks the bill is unconstitutional, he can take it to the Constitutional Court before signing it. And if the Court says that the bill is okay, the bill is constitutional, then the president would be left with no choice but to sign it forthwith. But if the Court says the bill is unconstitutional, then it cannot become law in its current form. Parliament would have to change it or drop it completely. So there you have it. If President Mnangagwa plays by the book, his legal move would be to send it to the Constitutional Court if Parliament remains adamant that the bill must become law. But in reality, Mnangagwa has the power. You see, the Zimbabwean executive arm of government has tremendous influence over both the judiciary and the legislature. That is just the nature of Zimbabwean politics. If Mnangagwa decides that he wants this bill to be dropped, he can press Parliament to drop it. No questions asked. He controls enough influence to get his way. As I said, the executive arm of government in Zimbabwe has tremendous influence over the judiciary and the legislature. So, on paper, there is a legal path. But, in practice, if ED wants this bill gone, he can make it happen. However, that scenario is unlikely. You see, this entire initiative is basically his brainchild, and he benefits from it directly. He chaired the cabinet meeting that approved the draft that became CAB 3, and he has never opposed it. He has praised the process since this bill was gazetted, calling it exemplary and transparent. In other words, the power to stop it exists, but he has no intention to use it. If anything, there is actually a slight hypothetical chance that ED might actually try to stop this bill, but only just for show, only as part of a well-choreographed drama. We all know ED has said he's a constitutionalist. He has repeated this since 2018, positioning himself as a man who respects the supreme law of the country. Many people might not think deeply about what that could actually mean in practice. You see, hypothetically, there is actually a chance that ED could reject CAB 3 outright, but just for show. Not because he does not want to sign it, but because the whole thing would have already been planned with his inner circle in Parliament especially those who control parliamentary business. So how would this play out? Well, upon receiving the bill in his office, ED sends it back to Parliament and makes it look like he does not want to sign it. Parliament then plays its part. It votes again with a 2/3 majority and sends it back to ED. ED then takes it to the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court then says, well, the bill is constitutional. At that point, ED can say, well, I have no choice now. The Parliament has forced my hand, and the Court has said the bill is constitutional. So, as a constitutionalist that I am duty-bound to sign this bill into law. That way, his people take the blame for pushing CAB 3, while ED looks like a man who was forced to sign something he did not want to sign. It would be theater, but theater with real consequences for how power is exercised in Zimbabwe going forward. So fellow Sadzaitas, this is where we must be very clear. The real story is that CAB 3 has already traveled through a parliament dominated by the same political system that benefits from it. CAB 3 has been pushed, defended, and carried by the machinery of power. So by the time it reaches the president's desk, it will not arrive there as a stranger because it emanates from there. It comes from the president's desk. It will arrive there as a child of the system itself. That is why I do not believe Zimbabweans should expect some dramatic constitutional miracle at the last minute. I have always said that you cannot win any court case against ZANU-PF over an issue that it is so determined to win. Fighting ZANU-PF in court over an issue like CAB 3 is like trying to sue the devil in the high court of hell. A power does not usually build a road, clear the traffic, escort the vehicle, and then act surprised when the vehicle reaches its destination. If ED signs CAB 3, that will simply confirm the direction in which the country is already being taken. And if by any chance ED appears to resist CAB 3, sends it back to Parliament, delays it or raises some concerns, Zimbabweans must not rush to celebrate. No! In Zimbabwean politics, not every refusal is resistance. Sometimes refusal is performance. Sometimes delay is choreography. Sometimes the man who looks like he is blocking the door is actually the one holding the keys. That is the deeper point. The CAB 3 is not just about one signature. It is about the architecture of power being redesigned in front of our very eyes. It is about making power less answerable to voters, less limited by time, and more protected by institutions that are supposed to control it. A constitution is supposed to be the people's shield against power. But when power begins to rewrite that shield for its own comfort, the nation must pay attention. Are we paying attention? How much is attention nowadays? Can you afford it? Because you see, countries do not always lose their democratic promise through soldiers in the streets or tanks at the gate. Sometimes they lose it through procedure, through parliament, through legal language, through carefully managed debates, through signatures that look like ordinary ink on paper but change the entire future of a nation. And that is why CAB 3 must be understood for what it is. It's not just a bill, it's not just an amendment. And when history looks back at this moment, the question will not be what ED did with his pen in signing this bill. The bigger question will be whether Zimbabweans understood what was being done to their country and what they did about it. What are we going to do about it? ZANU-PF doesn't want a referendum? What are we going to do about it? The 90-day public consultation phase was not inclusive? What did we do about it? Are we going to do anything about it? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section. And whatever happens, I'll be here to marinate you with all the details without fear or favor, because on this platform, we say it as it is. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please like and share.